Dragon Ball Super Chapter 86 seemingly ended the fight with Gas in arguably the best way possible. Seeing Goku, Vegeta, and Granolah work together to take down Gas was something that fans, including myself, were hoping for the past year. And yet, after reading this month's chapter, I can't help but feel unsatisfied. How's it going, everybody? Vegeta saying what is good to all my fellow Super Saiyans, and today we are here to discuss Dragon Ball Super Chapter 86, as well as the end of the Granolah arc. Chapter 85 left myself and many others in a state of, great, here we go again, seeing as Goku and Vegeta were starting to get the upper hand on Gas, only for Gas to then receive another power-up in form. And given his past couple of transformations, it seemed as though this fight was going to last for another couple of months. But Toyotaro surprised us all this month by jacking up the pacing to 11. For me, this was the first reason why the ending didn't feel all that satisfying. While I've wanted this arc to pick up the pace and come to a conclusion for a while now, to go from chapters that did little to no progression of the story to the climax and conclusion of the arc felt rather abrupt. Though this chapter did a fantastic job of establishing a sense of urgency, with everyone, even Gas included, being on their last legs, this wasn't something that was felt in the last couple of chapters. Ever since Gas transformed into his Berserker form, each chapter has kind of just gone back and forth with who the battle was in favor of, with this chapter in the beginning even contributing to that. Chapter 81 saw Gas beating the crap out of Granolah and the Saiyans, 82 had Goku pissing off Gas in their game of cat and mouse, 83 was flashbacks in which Bardock was beating the crap out of Gas, 84, Gas was barely struggling against Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego, 85, Goku and Vegeta were able to turn things back in their favor, and now, with the start of this chapter, Gas is in control yet again, only to be hucked straight into the sky. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is, rather than this feeling like a climactic final battle, it felt more like a glorified game of ping pong, and with the monthly releases, a rather slow one at that. Something else that feels off about this chapter is how, thanks to its previous rounds, I'm not even sure that this fight is over. Now, to clarify, this is more than likely the end of the fight, especially given Granolah's comments about how Gas will be knocked out for a few days, which, given his condition, he probably doesn't even have. When everyone in this arc just seems to be pushed to the physical brink only to get right back up stronger than before, the panel of Gas lying on the ground left me feeling like, okay, but is he actually down? Now, despite the arc being named after Granolah and many of us wanting to see him work together with the Saiyans to defeat Gas, the way in which this came about left me with some mixed feelings. On the one hand, it was great to see Goku taking a more supportive staller role, whilst Granolah was the one to charge up his attack, rather than the usual where Goku's the one to charge up the attack, while Vegeta is the one to fend off the opponent. But on the other hand, Granolah's entrance left a lot to be desired. Not to repeat the obvious, but he is the titular character of the arc, and yet we hadn't seen him in just about half a year real time, due to his lack of appearance in the last few chapters. For him to simply pop back into the fight out of the blue and finally state what we've all known for, well, a year now just felt rather jarring and rushed. But I think the thing that has me most put off by this chapter was how it felt as though it was pandering to their standard formula while ignoring the pieces of story and character development they had already put into place, mostly when it came to Gas. It had been well established in terms of brute strength that Gas was way ahead of the others, but when it came to battle IQ and being able to control his emotions in the heat of a fight, he was far behind the Saiyans. This made it seem as though rather than simply just hitting Gas with some big powerful attack, the Saiyans and Granolah would have to keep antagonizing Gas until he became overwhelmed in the war of attrition. By the end of Chapter 85, this felt even more apparent with Goku's redirection of Gas's techniques right back at him, and the clock that Alec had put on him by forcing him into his elder state, where his cells were being burned away as fuel. Yet, instead, we got exactly the opposite, with Goku just yeeting Gas into the sky, for Granolah to then take him down with, you guessed it, some big powerful attack. While this might sound like wanting to have my cake and eat it too, that feels like exactly what Toyotaro ended up doing himself. Despite having established so many different plot points such as 7-3's storyline, Alec's connections to Frieza, and Gas's PTSD, ultimately none of this seemed to matter as Granolah and the Saiyans were able to take him down in fairly standard Dragon Ball fashion. If you had said to me a year ago that the Saiyans and Granolah would take out Gas together as a result of their initial confrontation, I would have been ecstatic, as this is exactly what I had predicted when Chapter 74 released. And yet, the way in which we got there, I can't help but feel a sense of disconnect. Whether this disconnect came from Toyotaro's thoughts and ideas for the story versus how Toriyama wanted him to go about things, or if they were influenced via the marketing department due to things such as Bardock's popularity, as well as the delay of Dragon Ball Super Superhero, this drastic change of pace made Gas and the Saiyans battle within the last few chapters feel more like a spectacle than a legitimate fight. On top of this sense of spectacle, though, was also a sense of repetitiveness, as a lot of the paneling and moments throughout the fight felt the same as the ending of the battle with Moro. Slowplace had pointed out on Twitter that these two panels are basically identical, and yet, in my opinion, it feels like the one from this fight is a knockoff via its use of speed lines rather than detailing within the characters, as well as Goku being in UI Sign. We even have the second appearance of Goku's Susanoo form, which, I'm sorry guys, I just don't even know what else to call this goofy-ass thing, and even this felt lamer than its initial appearance. Rather than holding back a planet-sized villain, seeing this form used to huck gas into space like a baseball just felt like something out of Tom and Jerry. While I'll always be the first to remind people that Toriyama was originally a gag manga artist, and even Dragon Ball is meant to be comedic, seeing this during the climactic battle just felt like it didn't quite fit the tone, especially with the sense of urgency they developed this chapter. Seeing these similarities within the final fights of these most recent arcs, as well as the drastic change of pace within this month's chapter, it really just shoved all the arc's issues directly in the reader's face. Not only did it drag along the past few months, but it became completely formulated to the point where anything unique or different introduced within the arc was simply brushed aside for some flashy exchange of techniques we'd already seen before. Ultimately, this chapter felt similar to the rest of the arc, in that it was rather ambitious, but in turn ended up somewhat repetitive. While the urgency of the situation certainly escalated this month from the past few chapters, it ultimately felt no different than either of Gas's first two transformations. Despite villainous transformations being nothing new to Dragon Ball, they more often than not have some ways of displaying their strength, with each progressing stage forcing the heroes to use different methods, strategies, and techniques. With Gas, we simply had the same back and forth of, I'm the strongest, no I'm the strongest, no I'm the strongest, while Gas was being held at bay by one of the three in the trio, and the other two were either injured or learning something new about their techniques, and yet none of them have done anything new or different since Vegeta got Ultra Ego a year ago. Vegeta received a similar beatdown in which he allowed himself to take too much damage, Goku resorted to UI Sign, which as usual wasn't enough, and Granolah just shot a big laser beam. While I'll always have somewhat fond memories of reading this arc, as seeing Ultra Ego for the first time was the happiest this manga has made me since childhood, with purple being my favorite color and Vegeta being my favorite character, at the end of the day, this arc left so much to be desired in my opinion, and this chapter bringing about the story's climax truly highlighted that. With all that said, let us know down below what you thought of the chapter and the Granolah arc overall. Anyways, thanks for watching, I hope you guys enjoyed, peace out, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.